Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I wanted to say something. I was a waiter for the first time. How early Bruce has to get there.
I put it. Oh, you did. Okay. I was talking about you, but we know who you are.
So we'll start.
You're from the Library of Landscape. We have a quorum.
Saw the email that Wayne sent out.
Are we good to go?
Yep.
Okay. All right, it is 7:01 and we'll call to order for the meeting. So we've got full agenda. We're going to do public comment. We're going to discuss Reading Lions request, talk about the meeting room policy that we've talked about, update on the community DEI assessment, talk about the landscape committee, the tween spot, financial report, director's report. I believe we're going to modify the order correctly.
Yep.
Great. We are here on September 11th, so I thought it would be, in light of so many people impacted, both from lives lost on that day and following, and all just the families and people impacted. And it's hard to believe how many years it's been, but I thought it would be appropriate to maybe just start with a brief moment of silence, given that we're meeting on this day. Thank you all for that. The next thing on the agenda is to open up to public comment. If anyone would like to speak, they can step forward and have a couple minutes to address the board. Anyone online? Okay. So that will close public comment for today. And you want to move straight to the Lions? Or?
Yes, if you don't mind, we'll take it a little bit out of order since we have some in the Lions.
Great.
We received a request. As you know, the Board of Trustees has the authority to approve any kind of solicitation or tabling or anything that goes on at the library, and including also like collections of things or posting of things. The Lions have, it is a fundraiser, but they have a scarecrow contest, and this is their third year. And it's a seasonal activity that raises money for the Lions. And we do have two representatives, so the chair can recognize them if there's any questions. And this year they do set up a table at Harrow's, but they've asked to set up a table at some point at the library. They would be selling something. So they would be selling the kits, which are $20 each, and the proceeds go to the Lions, but then the person takes home the scarecrow and decorates it and puts it up, and then there's a contest. It is something the library has supported by having a scarecrow in the contest in the past. We actually have a great partnership with the Lions. As you know, they also have supported our Braille story times, and they do a lot with our visual assistive technology, making things available for people with low vision issues. So they did not ask for a specific day, date, or time. They just were opening it up and were looking for a trustee discussion and what they felt the trustees, if you felt it was appropriate, what you would feel comfortable with.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
My question would be, do you want to nail down a date ahead of time? Or I noticed one of the comments here was an outdoor setup would work well. So are you looking to maybe set the date as you're looking at the weather forecast and saying, well, this week has good weather, so we'd want to set up outside this week? Or do you want to set a time?
I think we'd be so happy with whatever, but I love the idea of kind of going with the flow by weather and making it just kind of a pop-up on a day when maybe there's a story time where we could, it's really just about appealing to families and getting the kids involved and everybody having a little fun. So whatever, we would be happy to pop up on a weekday whenever it might be okay with the library.
Amy, would it work for the library to have it as a pop-up situation, or is it better for the library and your staff to have a set day that you all know it's happening?
There's a couple ways to look at it. I really like the idea of combining it when we might have a larger children's program, but I'm also aware that it's fall. Perhaps with the forecast thing, we could plan some tentative dates. Being outside is helpful because that lobby is so small. So we could maybe punch in a couple, 3 tentative dates, and then it's weather permitting. And I think as long as we have those penciled in and it's not taking up any space, Michelle, I think that's reserved for anything else, then it shouldn't be a problem. Right. So,
Really great.
yeah. And the children's programs that run are usually only about an hour, if that. Right. And then also after school. So you might want to just pick 2 or 3 strategic days and a strategic period of time. And then just, we'll put it on. And obviously if it's rainy, we could try and come up with an alternative, or we could call it a pass and move on to the next day.
If you do them on a Saturday, every single Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, there is a Jumping Beans family story time, and those are well attended. So that might be an option.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
But what's the time frame for when you start selling and when you stop selling?
So just a short window, so maybe when the story thing ends or, and there, people are coming out.
I meant during the, like, starting, do you start September now and run through
When do we start selling up to?
dates of the program?
We sell in, at Harrow's, we just list our sales dates, so, Sunday, October 1, 8, 15, and 2,
So
9,
those are the
16.
3 weeks.
Oh, 3 weeks, okay.
Yeah. So,
First, 21st.
If we could have 2 Saturdays, that would be nice, but we'll take one. We're just trying to expand our sales a little bit, to be honest, to hit more families.
so if you were looking for a tentative date, you know, that weather dependent, maybe the 7th and the 14th,
Yeah,
Saturdays?
That would be great.
Does that work for you?
I would say from the library staff point of view, it works fine, facilities point of view.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, for the library staff and facilities, I think that would be fine.
Do you have any other
What
questions?
time is that program?
It runs from 10 to 10:30.
Oh, okay.
There are no other questions? We want to have a motion?
We need a motion. I'll make a motion to allow the Lions to set up a table on what was it, the 7th and the 14th, to sell the scarecrow kits. Have a second? Second.
How about on those dates or other acceptable dates?
Other acceptable dates as well.
Yeah, during October. Is that all right?
That's
That
I don't
amendment?
need to modify the motion, that's fine.
Okay. Modified, seconded?
Yep, second.
Okay. We'll do the roll call vote. Monette?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Monique?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
This is incredibly easy. Thank
We
you.
were told not to expect anything, though, this is not quite nice.
Well, thank you for coming to answer questions. So,
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Well, we will try to be good.
We'll take it out on the rest of the folks in the room.
It's kind of fun, you know,
it looks adorable.
what they do. It's great.
And outside is better, you know, for the kids to, I agree about the lobby.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah, it's not fair to the library.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
So moving on, next agenda item is our summer reading report and fall programming update. You're up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Fiorello, Head of Research and Reader Services, and this is really Ally's report. that I am taking on for absence. So we can go to the next slide. Summer statistics. We had a whirlwind of summer reading events, especially in children's and then in teens, and kind of laid back approaches we do in adults. But just a few highlights. We had 9 STEAM-focused programs for grades 1 through 5, and the math programs were the most popular. We had a talent show with gymnastics, piano playing, drums, and that was a lot of fun. 116 people showed up for Vehicle Day. Even though it was soggy, that was a hit like it always is. Teens sponsored a golf tournament, a mini golf tournament, and because teens are teens, we invited all ages to come. So 125 people showed up, lots of families. That was fun. 78 teen book reviews were submitted for the summer, which is not too shabby.
That's great.
Yeah, 81 teens attended programs. We partnered with Creative Arts a lot to do those teen programs. For adults, we had another fan favorite, Summer Sizzlers, kicked off our summer reading, and we had 125 people out for that. We had the Friends selling mocktails at that event to raise funds. Very fun night. So at the next slide, at a glance, what's coming up for the fall. We've already begun this. Children's is going full in on story times every day but Sundays. So that's the big news in children's. Teens is mostly focused on 6th grade tours, which is a great introduction for a lot of kids to the library for the first time. We usually drum up a lot of new business that way and really see an increase in 6th graders coming into the library to use the space after we do those tours. For adults, we are incorporating a lot of the things that we heard in our summer programming survey, which I believe have been shared with the trustees, kind of. Well, next slide, please. We have some old favorites like Birding with Dave Williams, but we also have some of the things that we're trying to incorporate either because they're on our fiscal year 24 goals or because we heard about them in the programming survey from the public. We're going to be doing some basics of budgeting, hoping to get a younger audience in for some financial literacy classes that we hope to continue for all different age groups. We're going to be doing some programming for active military and veterans. We have some plans to do another popular children's program, Sing-Alongs with Peter Sheridan. The story times that children's are going to be having, it's going to be 10 a.m. every day of the week except Thursdays. Thursdays, there'll be an adaptive story time every evening. Baby time will be every day of the week, every week instead of once a month, I think it was, or twice a month previously. And it will be staff-led every day except Fridays. Fridays will be a special guest or Peter Sheridan or a multi-language story time. We're getting kicked off with Health Nook programming with our health and wellness librarian, mental health first aid with the town. We're finally getting back to our English conversation circles with English at Large after a hiatus since COVID. Same with the Memory Cafe that we're partnering with Stoneham Senior Center and Pleasant Street Center. They are finally returning to the building since COVID. Next slide, please. Are there any questions about that slide before I move on?
Can I just ask, what's the military programming? What specifically do for military personnel?
The first two that are happening this fall, we're doing Autumn Hendrickson, who is a young person who did a lot, she did a ton of research in our local history room about World War II vets from Reading. She's going to be doing a talk. And then we have an author coming to talk about his new book, The Wingmen, The Unlikely, Unusual, Unbreakable Friendship Between John Glenn and Ted Williams, who met when they were in the Navy in Korea, I believe. Very strange and cool story. So that's where we're getting started.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So we have a lot of new stuff coming up this fiscal year. I've already talked about some of it, and some of it I'm going to be talking about when we cover what's the big idea coming right up. We are trying to do more meetups, both for teens and adults, sort of to gather people back together after we've been separated a lot. Spark Spot Open Studio for kids is kind of like a maker space. And then the RPL on Wheels, I'm sure you've heard that we've been going to the commuter rail. We're going to continue that on into September.
Isn't the commuter rail closing? Isn't it closed?
People are still there taking buses.
They're taking,
People are still there taking the bus?
Yeah, there's
Oh, okay.
buses.
so hopefully that'll be even more crowded and so more business.
It might definitely be that.
So our partners, like I said, English at Large, that's the conversation group. Memory Cafe is the next one, Stoneham Senior Center, Pleasant Street Center. NAGLI, that's the North Shore Alliance. I don't know what it all stands for. It used to stand for the Gay Lesbian Youth. I don't think it does anymore. Is that true? Anyone know what it is?
Maybe allies instead of. We have
That stands
fake computers here, so somebody will get it.
We're partnering with them.
I bet we can Google it.
Alliance.
Alliance.
Of gay and lesbian youth.
Oh, that's what it still stands for. Okay.
Yep.
The Town Coalition for Prevention and Support, the Town of Reading for story times. So on those Fridays when we have a special guest story time, it'll be someone like the chief of police or someone from the schools or Fidel, right? Fidel, when is your story time?
Saturdays at 9 a.m.
Oh. See, that's not what I think it is. Friday at 10, probably. But we don't know which one, I guess. And then the Reading Veterans Services. So I've been in talks with the Veterans Affairs officer here to possibly hold office hours, come to some of our events, see if maybe he might want to host some of his events here, because right now he just meets with his group at the senior center, which obviously isn't as well equipped to do active military, younger service members. All right, and any questions on that before we move on? Next one. All right, so what's the big idea? You can go on to the next slide. This is a new initiative. It's kind of like finding a theme when you write a grant, only without the grant. So we are very loosely looking at coming up with a very broad theme every year from the library and incorporating it into our collections and services and programs, sometimes in a tight way, but sometimes in a loose way. So it's going to run September through May, so we've already kicked it off. And this year, our theme is Your Place is Here. And like I said earlier, it's this idea of sort of regathering, regrouping, reconnecting after a time of isolation and separation. So we're going to celebrate our library as a natural third space besides home and work, a place that people can gather. We're going to emphasize a lot of community conversations, and a few examples of things that we're doing include the meetup groups that I discussed. We're working on a puzzle swap, programming around the Health Nook, conversation circles, story times, kids makerspace, the eclipse viewing that we're going to be giving out eclipse glasses for, and the read-in on the library lawn that is coming up on September 30th. This is actually a whole Commonwealth-wide celebration of the freedom to read. And because censorship attempts have just quadrupled in our state, but also really hit Reading hard, we're hoping that this is a chance for neighbors to come together in a kind of peaceful, polite way to stand up for the freedom to read. So we invite you and any other community members and leaders to show up, sit in a lawn chair and read whatever you want to read. Questions?
So I had one, and I think it was from the director's report, so maybe I'm getting ahead. But I thought I saw something about at the end of August, a lot of the reading and story times kind of were launched or opened and then filled up almost immediately? Is that just certain programming, or is that like, like if I just wanted to hypothetically stumble in with a 5-year-old?
So,
Monday?
yeah, the way that it, so what happens is that the people of Reading are insatiable for story times, and like the children's room just
Hence every single day.
can't keep up and can't please them. So they just decided to go full bore and do it constantly. And the way that they are sort of walking that line is they are doing 4 story times a week, maybe 5, that are registration only. And they ask that you only register for 1. They're all full and the wait lists are full before they even started. And then Fridays and Saturdays, it'll just be a drop in. So those will be held in this bigger space. The capacity will be much bigger, and it will be a chance for a more spontaneous approach and to hit those audiences that didn't get to the registration right away.
Wow.
Does that answer the question?
It does. It does.
Just to pipe in a little bit, the decision to make some of these registered and use the children's program room, which is a beautiful room, as you know. It's very tempting to go for the Peter Sheridans, the 100 people and things like that. Developmentally, it is much better for a small child to be in a small group with their caregiver and do, sort of one-to-one interactions. So, we're always trying to walk that line. You hear us talk about balancing things a lot of, what is the most developmentally beneficial for the child, of whether it's infant or toddler or preschool, and, making our numbers look good. So it feels counterintuitive in some ways to say that these are smaller programs with limited numbers, but they are better. They're better for the people who can attend.
I wonder if also you see increased engagement by that, because by RSVPing, you're committing more than just saying, oh, well, whatever.
Yes.
But I mean, I think administratively it adds to your burden, but
It's a
you're obviously responding with programming, because that's.
It's not the first time we've had registration for story times.
No. We've done tickets, we've done this, we've done that, but they've always been bigger. We're trying to really focus on it.
Yeah, I think in recent years, we've seen it be a little chaotic sometimes, and we're trying to
Right.
give kids a little bit of a more peaceful environment.
Yeah.
For their literacy needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like you're responding to that need a lot, because that's a load of programming.
It is. They might regret it. We'll see.
A good staff.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrea.
So next is discussion and vote on the meeting room policy and fees. So the updated language is included in the packet that was discussed last month. Open it up to see if anyone has any comments or questions on that.
Anyone can tell where I made the changes.
I was going to ask that.
They were very minor. Yeah, they were, I can tell you, we're eliminating the requirement for a library card.
Yes.
We kind of took the library director out of the decision about fundraising and just left it to the board, which is as it should be. We talked about the 5 days. Apparently the words at a minimum are confusing, so we changed it to at least. And we added some terms like in the initial fee, agreed upon fee, and then on number 10, we changed that to no less than 5 business days.
So it says no less than 7.
No less than 7, I'm sorry. Should that be 5?
No, didn't you and Annette have that conversation last time?
It should be,
About business days
it
versus.
should be the same as the, at least 5 business days.
So it should be 5.
It should be 5.
So that should be 5, so that's an error that needs to be,
But it should be business days.
yes, it should be 7 business days.
Yes.
5,
Impact-
should be 5 business.
5 business days.
Right. Does that impact .7 as well? Because 7 is,
No.
okay. I didn't think it did. That doesn't seem related.
Billing in arrears.
direction, yeah.
So with that one exception, changes were accounted for.
Anything else? Any other questions? Adam? Want to make a motion?
Move to accept the library room policy, the meeting room policy as presented.
Second.
Second. Okay, roll call vote. Lynette?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Monique?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much. So we move on to update community DEI assessment.
So I will just cover that, and Fidel, I'll encourage you to jump in if you can think of anything I missed. We have met a number of times with Opportunity Consulting, and we have also had the implementation kickoff meeting. The implementation committee is really the internal town employees that are making this, that are on the ground making this happen. Opportunity Consulting developed a survey, which are on the other table that I put over there. There's a QR code, and we're encouraging everyone to fill this out. We'll share it with you, and I would encourage you to share it amongst your networks. We're trying to get as broad a group of people to participate as we can. It's very simple. Opportunity Consulting is also working, they've been working with Sudeshna and Fidel and myself in developing one-to-one and small group interviews. They're focus groups essentially, and they've been plugging away at that, and they're getting a lot of data. We've also been able to hand them off data that we collected from the SWEC survey, the Recalc survey, the housing survey, housing plan. I'm getting them information from the library. Fidel's getting them information from the employees. I'll obviously cleaned information for statistics purposes. And so they're just collecting a lot of that data, and they're going to be doing some deep dives into that. So then we're going to move on to sort of the analysis piece of it and progress. There's a timeline that seems to make a lot of sense. And Sudeshna has been sort of nudging this along with a few hours a week, working with them and keeping us all up to date. So I haven't seen the bills yet, but I'm assuming at some point we'll come due for our portion of the library is supporting this, so we'll come portion for our due. Monique, I was wondering if they had reached out to you?
Yes, I have been reached out to, and we were provided some opportunities to choose some times for a 20 to 30 minute interview. My interview.
You turned yourself off.
Sorry about that. My interview will be on the 27th of September. I don't know how much you heard before I cut myself off.
No, that's good. No, that was good.
Okay.
So Megan, maybe we can put on the action items to mail everyone the flyer, and then you can forward it to everyone can forward it to their, we'll include it in the minutes from today. Are there any questions about the assessment programs? Really nice when there's no questions.
Okay. Hearing none, move on. Next item of business is the Library Landscape Committee. The Activitas proposal for an exploratory concept and design.
So I just want the chair to recognize we have Gana Pilievsky and Fidel Maltez. Gana is the chair of the Landscape Committee, and Fidel has been absolutely invaluable through this process. You were sent out in last week's packet, the original proposal, not the original, it was actually the second proposal. And then this afternoon, we emailed you a third, you should have received a third version, and it's dated 9/11/23. And it has some small changes and updates to it. The price proposal stays the same. And is it okay if I just give the quick summary? Cappy was there at the meeting on the 7th. We had a landscape committee meeting, and we went through in a very detailed manner. We went through the proposal and had some requests and changes, which Fidel got onto, and we got back today. And at the end of the day, meeting that pending those clarifications and changes, the committee did vote to recommend this proposal to the Board of Trustees. So we are all here to answer any further questions you might have about the proposal.
So this is written now as a letter to Fidel. So is this is now the town is signing this, so it wouldn't be the board?
Town manager would sign all contracts. Where the funds come from is we would still pay the bill.
We would still pay.
Yeah. So even when I get a grant, like an LSTA grant, Fidel is the contract, is the signee.
And how did this entity come about? I know at one point. Yeah, I come over.
Figured you would be more appropriate to.
For the viewers at home.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Activitas is a firm. They are a landscape architecture firm. And the town has been doing work with Activitas for over a decade. They are presently doing phase one for Birch Meadow. So they're in town all the time. Prior to that, they were involved in the Birch Meadow master plan effort. They have done probably all of the turf fields in town, right? And a big discussion that we had was around, that their experience in town was mostly around athletic fields, right? But if just to kind of answer that question is Birch Meadow Phase 1, for example, is involves a lot more things, right? So there's a parking lot in place. There's a walkway, right? There is a restroom structure. So they don't just do athletic fields. They do landscape architecture, creative placemaking, right? And those kind of things. They also have the benefit of doing a lot of work in town right now. So we're able to capitalize on economies of scale. Like when they come to town to do a survey or do a meeting, we'll take advantage of the synergies that are created by them being here.
I assume with these other projects you mentioned that the town has been happy.
Yeah.
Which is why
Absolutely.
you're suggesting it.
Continuing. Yes.
Asking the obvious.
Yeah.
And then one thing I was looking at this that I just would throw out as an idea is, in addition to all this survey, and I think this is probably inherent in some of this, but just to be clear, is both the kind of the sustainability in terms of once this is all set and going, what is that ongoing cost going to be, either for, the town for the property or to the library budget going forward? I mean, obviously that's going to depend on what happens and what's done, but I just want to make sure that's kind of baked in to make sure that this is done. I do think, personally, I'm already starting to get a little nervous on the fundraising side of this, because I think that's going to be a big number.
I just say on task 3, the preferred concept plan, one of the things they do is give an opinion on probable project costs, and that's soup to nuts, and it does include maintenance, annual and long-term maintenance budget.
Okay.
So that is it. They are, they're, I'm gonna say back of the envelope, but they're probable costs, but they do take that into consideration. And in terms of the fundraising, it's helping, I don't think they don't do the fundraising, but they will, have ideas on, here's a great photo to use, here's a graphic you can use, here's a tagline you can use. And as I recall with the Birch Meadow, what happened is the whole package was like much bigger. It was a big package. And then they're like, okay, we'll chunk that out, right? So what can the town do what's the first priority? And that's how they decided on the first $1 million. And then there may be other phases that they choose to implement or choose not to implement.
my read of this is they're coming up with like basically two options though. They're going to do the whole survey and then eventually the output is going to be two design options to then meet again.
Exactly right. Yeah, and that's something that we talked about in the original, in their original proposal. They said one or two, and we said, we want to see two.
So I have a couple of questions as well. So understanding that they're going to help with, some fundraising assistance, Amy, it sounds like what you were just mentioning is really kind of marketing collateral to support with that. Do they help with any investigation of grants that we might be eligible for or anything like that?
I think we can ask them. They may know of some. I'm not sure where they're, I mean, we straddle an odd line because we're libraries. So there are things that are open to us that may not be open to other town departments, right? Like a rec department or something. But they clearly do this in a lot of municipalities and schools who don't necessarily have the cash up front. So I think it's one thing we would ask for is any ideas that they have for that.
Okay. My other question is, when I look at what's laid out here as part of this proposal, what I'm not seeing is a timeline for what's included in here.
Yeah.
So do you have a sense? Is this a 3-month window, a 6-month window, a 9-month window to get to through this phasing?
Yeah, we asked them that question. They said that if you approve tonight, they will likely get started in October, and they foresee a 3-month period, with the caveat, of course, that there's holidays in there, so there might be a little bit of delay, but roughly a 3-month period.
Okay. And did you meet each of the people that they're proposing?
We've met them. Again, this is the firm that does work in town, way bigger projects than this. I mean, they're in town all the time. So we've met with them on many occasions.
Okay, I guess what I meant is they're listing 4 people in particular, so you know the 4.
Very well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and one of the things that was interesting that was added was, it was unclear in the last revision, the output of this proposal, the work item, what we would be able to do with it, because the way it was worded sounded like we would have to use them as the implementation firm. Or we couldn't do it, but they've clarified that we have full rights. We don't have to use them if we don't decide to move forward, whether it's cost, we find a better option, another vendor. This is an output with a couple of design options, and we can use it as we see fit.
Okay. Can you remind me how many members of the neighborhood are on the committee?
You would probably.
Well, actually, you kind of count as a neighbor as well, but Jake Susi is on the committee. He's right next.
There's one that's sharing a fence with you.
Okay, great.
Because that was part of the issue with lighting, right?
Yes.
Site proper site design. Got a bit called.
Just want to make sure the neighbors are involved.
Yeah.
I know we gave them the opportunity to be involved. I just didn't know if anybody got involved.
Yes.
Then remind me of, with the now expanded committee, what other town, like, is there like a DPW presence or other aspects of town management on it? I believe, I recall you, I recall Ben as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's me, Ben, Andrew from a planning standpoint, right? Joe Huggins, who is in charge of facilities, and then DPW as well. So our town engineer is going to be involved because of drainage, water, sewer, and those kind of things.
I think there was some discussion about what the working group is, and I think that's different. It's going to include, it should include and will include people from the landscape committee, but it's not necessarily the whole landscape committee. It might be a combination depending on the situation. But the working group is something that we'll work out with Activitas.
I have one question, because we had mentioned an issue with, I can't remember who raised it, about external, like irrigation or outside hose access, basically.
We added irrigation.
I assume.
It's under, yes,
Yeah, it's on there.
It should be.
Okay, yeah.
under landscaping.
Okay, great.
For the purposes of tonight's meeting, is the committee asking us to approve
You have,
spending $20,350 for these phases?
yes, so the committee voted to recommend this proposal to you. The one little tiny thing was that when I presented the supplemental spending, I submitted $20,000, and we just want to be very transparent and say that our quote, revised quote is $1,350. So we are a little tick over what I had originally budgeted for. But you can, kind of like we did with the EV chargers, the board votes to accept a proposal and give the town manager permission to move forward with the proposal if that's what you would like. We have not sought anything. The committee has not reached out to any other vendor. But I am very happy personally, and I'm not a voting member of that committee. I'm very happy with Fidel's and the work that I've seen them do. And Jenna Fiorente from REC has also recommended them.
Yeah.
We don't have to put this out to bid to get more than one bid?
We do not. We do not because of the nature of the work. So we could contract with any architect. Architecture work is exempt. But I think what we get with this firm is one, they're doing work in town, right? So the a lot of the expenses of any consultant, right, can be absorbed into their the other work in town. It's relatively small, right? So it's a small contract for the consultant. To get a vendor that is not currently doing work in town to even answer to this, I question whether it's big enough to get any interest. And you know, with all of our schedules, I think that the relationships that this vendor has established, you know, in doing work in town, is going to make it so that that timeline, which I heard is really important for the committee, to be able to hit that timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the big things was the timeline, because if we had to start submitting bids, I mean, I don't know, you guys had mentioned a December timeline. I don't remember what that was for because it was my first meeting, but I know there was a December, somebody wanted to get it done by December, and that would be absolutely impossible if we had to do external vendors. And because they're in town, they're going to fast track it as best they can, within reason, of course, but get it done quickly. And we at least have a line in the sand. We may say this is garbage, we don't want it. I doubt that, but you know, it's an option where we at least have something to discuss and move forward as a piece.
Would the implementation of this then have to go out to bid?
Construction, absolutely.
Yes.
Construction,
Right.
absolutely.
And that's why the question was, what do we do with the output? Like if they were the only firm, then that was against the whole point because we have to put it out for bid. But they've been very clear that we get all the plans, all the renderings, 2D and 3D, et cetera, to use as we see fit.
And Amy, I know this was in the minutes for last meeting, but the funds are proposed to be coming out of donated funds currently. Is that correct?
I have to check. It was either state aid or regular gifts. I think it was gifts. It was gifts.
I have one last question, Fidel, and Joe, it may even be you who knows the answer to this. I was surprised under reimbursable expenses that they're charging 1.15 on mileage. I mean, my firm charges mileage for our business and we charge the federal rate. So is this common? Do we pay this to other vendors for their travel, 1.15 of the federal rate?
It says mileage at the current IRS rate, I thought.
Travel, it says overnight delivery and travel shall be invoiced at 1.5 times their actual cost. So I was taking that as regular travel, not.
Right, the line before it says, but include only actual expenditures such as but unlimited to tolls mileage at the current IRS rate.
So what's the travel in the second?
That might be like parking. I don't know, something like that.
Good question.
Yeah, this is their boilerplate language, right? I mean, and I think that we had a conversation about the fact that you know, they for this project they have assured us that they'll limit expenses by, if they're coming in town for, another project, they'll combine it. I'll tell you that their initial proposal was a lot higher than this, and Amy and I beat them down to this number. So it's boilerplate language, but they understand that it's, they're doing this for the long-term relationship with the town.
And Pat, it is gift spending,
Thank you.
donations.
We authorize the town manager to contract with Activitas in accordance with the terms of the proposal as presented.
I would move to do that.
Second?
Any other questions?
No additional questions.
Roll call. Monette?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Monique?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you very much, both of you, for coming. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very much, Fidel. Thank you.
Thank you, Fidel.
And Amy, thank you for your help.
Thank you, Kenna.
Okay. Moving on, we have the tween spot update.
So we have been working on this. We had submitted a request for quote, and we received one quote, and then we realized there was an error, and we had to re-quote it, and we are now waiting for additional submissions. We're hoping the original person will actually submit it again. There's a slim chance the number is getting up to, this has a lot to do with insurance and coverage, and it's kind of, there is a slim chance that we may need to readjust our pricing. I will know more about that by the next meeting, but if for some reason this portion of the project, we expect it to be about $50,000. We're hoping for $49,999 because once we kick it over 50, we get into a different procurement classification. We are realizing part of the reason we're not getting many responses is because that's a pretty low, it's probably worth more than that amount. So we are good with the mural. We are good with many of the other parts of the purchase. It's the actual the production, fabrication and installation of the actual custom-made bookshelves and trees that we saw. One option, if this doesn't take off in the next 2 months, is to go ahead with the mural and go ahead with creating some space with existing furniture or sort of, Dimco or WB Mason furniture as a temporary hold, and then, regroup and look at the designs and see if, do we need to add another $10,000 to $15,000 for this, or is there a way that we can modify the existing plans? It's a little bit up in the air. Most of it has to do with making sure that we're covered and making sure that the vendors are covered. It's an unusual, we had a long discussion about whether things get screwed into the wall, because once they get screwed into the wall, it's a construction bid. And so there's a lot of things that I'm learning about the procurement process. These are supposed to be standalone items, but obviously we want what's made and custom made to, we want it to be safe. We don't want it breaking. We don't even want anything falling on anyone's head. So we want to make sure we have all of the performance bonds and insurance and umbrella insurance and all of that in place. That wasn't really something that we considered going into this. And then we started having to add those costs to the project. So
is this something that, because I don't understand, I understand somebody not wanting to take the job at a lower cost. Is it something that could be split up into different phases to entice them? So the larger number may be larger, and that would not impact your procurement if it was below the 50K per phase?
maybe.
Yeah, it's up to
That's
them.
definitely something we have to.
And I still not want to.
Want to be very clear that we're not splitting a bid to not make it over $50,000. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, totally do.
But on the other hand, yeah, if you could reasonably say that it really is sort of a $48,000 project, but let's only go with the first 30,000, and then in 2 years or in another year, it costs, X percent more, and totally, yeah, it's about how much we spend with the vendor on the year. So I can definitely talk about that with our procurement officer. I think our next step is to sit down with a person who is a strong candidate and to kind of work through the contract and see what our options are and whether we have to, rejigger it again. We do have a preferred, someone we would really like to work with on this, and they're very anxious to do the work. But we just need to be able to make sure that we're doing it appropriately and by the book. And sometimes we had to reset basically. So I was really excited last time and now we're back in the same position. So I just wanted to give you an update on that.
Any other questions or follow-up on that? Sounds like we're in limbo till October.
We're in little limbo, yeah.
Great, thank you. Financial report and director's report are the next two on deck.
Whiz through these, there's not much. You guys have a warrant in front of you today. Thank you for signing that. And we had a few gifts, which was wonderful. They're just sort of, one was in memory of Neil Mixis, and then I think we're going to be buying carpentry and woodworking. That was Neil's livelihood, so that was for Kathy Mixis' husband who had passed away. Are there any questions about the FY24 budget? Sharon is going to be closing, the town accountant is going to be closing the FY23 budget on the 27th.
This Friday.
This Friday? Oh, this Friday, the 13th, or 15th.
15th.
Wow. Yeah, this week. So I'll be closing FY23, so we'll be able to do our financial reports. Before you know it, we're already doing FY25 budget, and so it all goes so quickly. Are there any questions about FY23? Okay. Any questions from our finance committee? Okay. The first pieces of information on your director's report are the snapshots of the usage. I haven't started to include, just so you can see the comparisons more than just this month and last month. As always, if there's anything you want me to focus in on or zoom in on for a particular report, like next month, please report on reference questions. I'm happy to do that. And things are going along merrily, and you can see from our public services report that, we're hitting our second quarter of programming pretty hard. And it's going to be a very busy fall for us. In terms of facilities and operations, the level 3 charger came in. They're still working on a few tweaks. I did not realize that it would also involve another large white utility box, which is a big box that you see sitting there. So Michelle and Desiree and Jocelyn Gold, we think we're going to come up with another wrap. RMLD said they'll be able to pay for some of that so that we can have something either whimsical or attractive in the middle of our island beyond just the chargers. The HVAC has been fun with, I will say, starting this year in 2023, 7 years in, 7 years into the project, we are seeing compressors go. We had a bunch go in May, and we just had another one go this, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago?
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. I don't know if we're going to say fortunately or unfortunately, the main places affected are staff work areas. And we have had some people working in other spaces, as well as a couple people had permission to work remotely because the room was at 78 to about 81. And it was just really not good working conditions. The teen spot's a little up as well, but that has enough air coming through the rest of the building. So collections and programs, most of this was mentioned in Andrea's report. I do want to just say that, do you remember when we started the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten? It was apparently about in 2018, but it was an initiative, I think it's a national initiative to read 1,000 books before kindergarten. And we have now had so many children in Reading that our wall is too big, too small. And so we've had to create a scrapbook. And these to take your face off that's a really big deal. So we have a scrapbook. Make sure you look at the scrapbook and tell all your friends about the scrapbook. We're not deleting anyone from the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, but that's quite a bit of reading, and it is quite an achievement, and we love to see families getting involved with that. I don't have much else to report on collection programs and services. I'll just reiterate the September 30th community reading coming. So please participate in that. And the sixth grade tour is coming up, which, as mentioned, is something we bring in 300 or so sixth graders into the building. Coolidge and Parker do it slightly different from each other, but we do get to have FaceTime with all the sixth graders in the public school system. So we have a 30 years this year. Dawn Colford is separate, and we'll have another one next year, but we have an employee with 30 years of longevity here at the Reading Public Library, as well as folks celebrating 23, 19, and 10 years. So while we have a fairly young staff in some aspects, we have a lot of old timers as well. And thank them for their service. Our pages, our high school pages graduated and they're off, so we bid them farewell. We are in the process of getting 2 new, I think we have an offer out to 1, and then we hope to get another, they're doing some interviews, and then hopefully we'll have a second one going sometime in the next few weeks. We expect to start the interviews for Allie's position this week. And our Sundays are looking pretty filled in. So that's usually the hardest thing for us to schedule. Right now, our Sundays are scheduled out through January, and then we'll do February through May a little later on in the fall. And as you can see, as usual, there's a great diversity in the types of programs that our staff continue to do with professional development. It's been a busy month. This fall in October, we have NELA. Actually, is that early? It's probably before the...
It's the 15th. It's the same week as...
It's the same week as our meeting, but we have 3 or 4 folks going to NELA with Michelle, who's the MLA president. Yeah. So she's going to represent Mass Library Association. Yep. Kate will be going. I think Ashley, Megan McCabe. We have several people going to NELA, so you'll start to see those bills coming in. And it is in Springfield. And that's it.
Just out of curiosity, what's the 10 million names project? One of the things.
Oh, it's one of the education. Who did that?
It's dedicated to finding the names.
Oh, this is probably Jocelyn.
Yeah, I bet it is.
This is our local history librarian.
A genealogy sort of thing?
It's yeah, and it has to do with, I think, BIPOC communities.
Yes. It'll help millions of African Americans connect to their family histories.
Yeah. So it's something that is open to archivists and libraries. So I think Jocelyn took a class or webinar on how to help contribute to that. She's been pretty active in trying to do some historical research in Reading around our Black and brown people, which is challenging, but she's making headway. Very interesting, actually.
Why is the locker use NA for August?
Because the person who was reporting on it was on vacation the week the report was due.
Oh, okay, totally fine. I didn't know if there was a problem with the lockers.
No, and I actually think I just got the number. I didn't have the number when I sent this out, but I got the number this week, and I think it was like 88.
Did we have them a year ago active?
What?
Oh, right here.
NA is 22.
Oh, 22. Oh, sorry.
Now you've completely lost me.
The locker use, it's for August 22, is NA, and then I don't know if we.
Oh, that's definitely because we didn't have it.
Oh.
We didn't have the lockers up and running. Sorry.
That was 22.
85, yeah, we had 85 this month.
Can I ask, how has the last month been in terms of books going missing in the teen room?
Good question.
It is under control.
Yeah.
I would say it's under control, and I'm trying to think about how to put this. School is back in session, and we are going to see a drop in that type of behavior. And we're fairly sure we understand how and when that was happening, and we adjusted our staffing accordingly. And it appears that our suspicions were correct because it has pretty much stopped.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. And our goal is obviously not to shame or blame. It is to make sure that our resources are available for those who wish to have our resources.
I think this and dovetailing with Andrea's, I think that fall schedules will be like, that's a great schedule, and that's so many things. And I do like that the official record does have the phrase stinking adorable.
I was going to bring it up.
That is what I acknowledge.
Like, could you elaborate on the stinking adorableness?
I think that might have been the magician.
Can't even imagine.
So no, it was,
How old was the magician?
I don't know, but it was just really,
Oh, come on.
10 maybe?
10.
Yeah.
I went to it, so he was 10 and he had his brother helping him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was very cute. The whole thing. There was someone playing the piano, there was a drum set. There were several singers, several dancers. It was so good.
And again, it is stinking cute.
It was
And-
cute.
And encouraging youth to get up and stand in front of people has an incredibly positive developmental, it takes a lot to stand up and do those things. And, I think any type of performance or presentation at a young age is really, really beneficial, particularly for kids who may not be into team sports or, that may feel not kind of connected or belonging. So I think programs like that they are sweet and they are cute, but they are also really, I think, invaluable for a lot of our kids. And thinking cute.
Thank you very much. Next up, approval of the August 14, 2023 meeting minutes. Once again, Megan's outdoing herself.
Yeah.
Just the succinct and clarity, but it's very detailed. I had no comments on it, but open up to everyone else.
Megan, I thought you did a great job, especially capturing all the public comment.
Mhm.
And the fact that I briefly left the meeting, was gonna send like a detailed explanation just so it could go in here because you're so detailed. Power went in. I have no addition. You're fantastic.
You have a motion?
Motion to accept.
I move to accept the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting on August 14th, 2023.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Monette?
Accepted, yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Cappy?
Yes.
Monique?
Yes.
I am a yes as well. Future agenda items. I don't know if we have any.
Do you have any?
The only thing I will say, looking at the minutes again, I'll just make this as a comment to the rest of the board. And it's something we can talk about at another point. But following the last meeting, there were a couple outreach, both in I think one email, but also just a couple other discussions where one of the criticisms was allowing people outside of Reading to participate in public comment. And that I should not have done that. And when you look at the minutes, you can see some of it. My personal view right now is the library is a resource for much more about, beyond the town. So for purposes of public comment, not for the request, but for purposes of public comment, I am comfortable with that. If we have another crowded situation, we can certainly make sure that Reading residents are heard first or given priority, perhaps. Again, this is just my 2 cents and the policy can change over time, but I don't think, as long as action requested of the board is really the formal requests are by Reading residents and that residency requirement's important, because this is such a widely used building, I don't have a problem with people coming in and providing that public comment. If we have a meeting and it's 95% people outside of town, maybe we revisit it at that time, but I'm happy to entertain it at some point, but I just thought I'd throw that out there because I know I had at least 2 or 3 conversations involving that with folks since the meeting.
My understanding, Amy, I think you and I talked about this a little bit, is we can't limit it. We can't limit it, because I had some questions as well, and then Amy and I talked about it afterwards. I don't think we can limit that.
No, you can't, you can have a public comment is for anybody.
Is there any way to organize it, as Pat had mentioned?
I think you
Say we have a crowded room.
Yes, I think you
wanna make sure
can.
that all Reading residents have a chance to speak,
Right.
and only then do we.
The chair has the discretion for the time and manner.
Okay.
I think that would fall under manner.
That would be my only concern.
And then I think, obviously depending on the number of people, you decide, okay, it's 45 minutes. Okay, it's an hour, 2 minutes each, 1 minute each. Priority. And, you had the discretion of having the people who brought the challenge, giving them that first opportunity if they wished. So yes, you can prescribe the manner, but you cannot. And the manner also goes to if someone is being disruptive, you can request that they leave if they are being disruptive to the proceedings. So, and I think there's language like maybe escorted out by the constable or something like that. So, but yes.
I believe that is the language. Okay. Anything else for future agenda items or anything else anyone likes to bring up? Would like to bring up?
Nothing for me.
A financial forum, we have a financial forum on the 27th here at the library. No. Yes, the 27th. No, getting it wrong.
20th, right?
The 20th, yes, thank you. There's a financial forum. It should be here at the library. This is the first of several meetings that will kick off the FY25 budgeting process. And I may have a report for you based on the financial forum. And you do not need to attend, not required. You can also tune in from home, watch popcorn.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else, then have a motion.
Adjourn.
Second.
Monette?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Monique?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Monique.
Bye-bye now.
8:08.